How would you describe Alice in Wonderland? The term Alice not only refers to the 1951 Disney animated film Alice in Wonderland, but the association of drugs within the film is so established that it's also a slang term for LSD. Released by Disney in 1951, Alice in Wonderland is based on the fable written by Lewis Carroll. From murderous tyrants to dodo birds that trick sea creatures into running in circles to get dry like him.
No one can ever get dry this way.
Nonsense! Why, I'm as dry as a bone already.
To the copious innuendos to drugs, the film Alice in Wonderland is nothing short of risque. In this video, I'm going to be proving to you why Alice in Wonderland is definitely connected to drugs. Let's start with a little background information. In America, drug use was on the rise starting in the 1940s and reached its broadest cultural acceptability in the 1960s to 1970s. Disney released the film in 1951, and when it didn't do too well, they re-released it in 1974, where the film did much better. The original release was deemed to be a box office failure, and it wasn't until the decade where drugs were at its peak of cultural acceptance that the film began to gain momentum and attain popularity. While never explicitly acknowledging the hallucinogenic associations, Disney cleverly marketed the re-release of its film as visual euphoria, tapping into the drug culture of the student market, further emphasizing the film's connection to drugs. Now let's take a look at some places in the film where you can find drugs.
Eat me, all right. But goodness knows what this will do. Whoa, 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 whoa!
Barbarian!
Probably the most infamous use of drugs throughout the film is the caterpillar smoking the hookah. When Alice arrives at the home of the caterpillar, she's greeted by vibrantly colored smoke letters coming from his hookah. The caterpillar shows many symptoms of being high, and many believe that he is under the influence of opium, but the problem is that one cannot get high from smoking a hookah, nor can one smoke opium in a hookah. This dilemma presents the notion of a crossover between two completely different drugs, tobacco and opium.
I do not see. Explain yourself.
I'm afraid I can't explain myself, sir, because I'm not myself, you know.
I do not know.
Well, I can't put it any more clearly, for it isn't clear to me.
Here we see that things aren't making much sense to Alice and that her perception of reality has started to become skewed.
Oh dear, everything is so confusing.
It is not.
Well, it is to me.
Why?
Well, I can't remember things as I used to.
Alice saying that she can't remember things as she used to is indicative of her having used drugs, because drugs inhibit your ability to think properly and recall previous memories. Another compelling scene is when Alice leaves Wonderland. Although the movie presents Alice's whole adventure as just a dream, after looking deeper at the scene, one begins to realize that there is a much deeper meaning to this ending. This ending portrays a person at the end of a trip.
You must get out!
But you are outside.
What?
See for yourself.
Why, that's me! I'm asleep.
Alice is having an out-of-body experience, which is indicative of drug usage, and even after she wakes up, she believes that everything was real and cannot decipher between reality and fantasy.
Alice, what are you talking about? Oh, I'm sorry. But you see, the caterpillar said... Caterpillar? Oh, for goodness sake.
Once Alice in Wonderland was released to the media, fans began speculating and coming up with their own theories and opinions on the deeper meanings of the film. A popular belief in the 60s was about how Carol was a drug user and that this tone was then translated into the film. People that were immersed in the drug culture at this time felt that he was speaking their language and that the imagery of the movie just strengthened their argument. When talking about Alice in Wonderland nowadays, people just imply the fact that there is a correlation rather than going into detail about it. Many fans start up discussions on forum websites like Reddit so they can discuss the film with others who may share the same beliefs as them. There is even a group of online users who believe that the film is criticizing abstract mathematics because Lewis Carroll was no stranger to linear algebra. In Alice in Wonderland and Philosophy, Curiouser and Curiouser, Scott Parker, the author of the chapter How Deep Does the Rabbit Hole Go? Drugs and Dreams, Perception and Reality, addresses how he believes the film is an exploration into the perception of reality and how drugs play a role in impacting it.
It's just a rabbit with a waistcoat and a watch.
Oh, my dear whiskies! I'm late!
I was drawn to this subject because as a child, I always felt drawn to Alice in Wonderland, but I could never explain why. I enjoyed the psychedelic visuals in my youth, but as an adult, I understand the meaning behind the madness and have begun to appreciate the craziness behind the story. Overall, there is a substantial amount of evidence to back up the argument that the film is connected to drugs. From looking at the history of the film, to the references in the plot, to audience theories, it is almost common knowledge in the eye of the public that there is undoubtedly a connection here. I hope this helped you see Alice in Wonderland in a whole new light. Thanks for watching!
Of course not. This is an unbirthday party.